days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. Kai wasn't sure what to expect, but he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't even known about the letter. But now that he was standing before Elder Johann, he knew that his life was about to change forever. Elder Johann hesitated. He had promised to find Alara a suitable match, but the mix-up with the letter had complicated things. He decided to keep his word, though. He would let Kai meet Alara and see if they were truly a good match. When Alara met Kai, she was struck by how different he was from the other young men in the village. He was humble and respectful, but there was an undeniable strength in him, both physical and emotional. She felt comfortable around him, and over time, they developed a deep bond. It wasn't long before Elder Johann realized that Alara had fallen in love with Kai. She admired his bravery and kindness, and she knew that he would make a good husband. Reluctantly, Johann accepted the reality of the situation. A simple ceremony was held in the village square. The villagers gathered to celebrate as Kai and Alara exchanged vows, and the air was filled with joy and music. It wasn't the grand wedding Johann had once envisioned, but it was enough. It was a wedding born of love and respect, and that was all that mattered. Kai and Alara became husband and wife, and as they stood together, the villagers cheered. For Kai, it was the beginning of a new life, a life filled with love and responsibility. For Alara, it was the beginning of a partnership with a man she knew she could trust. The village, once again, had settled into its peaceful rhythm. The sun was still shining on the green fields, the river gently flowing beside the village, and life went on in the way it always had. But for Kai and Alara, things were changing. They had married just a few weeks ago, and already they felt the weight of their responsibilities. Kai was now part of the village's future, and though he had been accepted by the villagers, there was still a sense of uncertainty hanging over his role. Elder Johann, who had watched the young couple with a quiet eye, had come to terms with his decision. He had reluctantly allowed Kai and Alara to marry, and while part of him still feared for the village's future, he saw the love between them and began to realize that Kai might indeed be the right choice to lead after him. But that sense of peace was shattered one morning when Elder Johann suddenly fell ill. It came on quickly, and within hours, the village doctor was summoned to his side. The villagers gathered, whispers of concern spreading like wildfire. They all knew Elder Johann was aging, but no one expected this to happen so soon. His illness was serious, and the doctor could do little more than ease his pain. Alara sat by her father's side, holding his hand, tears silently falling down her face. She had always known this day would come, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure she was ready. And Kai, ever faithful, stood beside her, offering support and quiet strength. His heart was heavy, and though he had once been an orphan with no family, he had now become the protector of this village, and that responsibility weighed heavily on him. "Father, don't worry. We'll be fine. You've taught us so much," Alara whispered. But Yuhan's eyes, though cloudy with fever, flickered with a silent worry. Yuhan's voice was weak, but filled with emotion. "Alara, Kai, I've spent my life worrying about the future, but now I see that the village will be in good hands." He paused, his breathing shallow. "Kai, you are the one I've chosen. You are strong, and you care for the village as much as I do. You will lead them when the time comes." Kai was shocked, his heart racing. "Elder Yuhan, I am not prepared." But Yuhan, with a trembling hand, reached out and placed it on Kai's shoulder. "You are more prepared than you think. You have the heart of a leader. Look after Alara, look after the village, and they will look after you." As the days passed, Yuhan's condition worsened. The villagers were nervous, unsure of how to handle the situation. They knew Yuhan was the heart of the village, and with him gone, they were afraid of what would happen next. But everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, knew that Kai had proven himself. He had stood up when it mattered, and he had shown the strength and compassion needed to lead. One quiet evening, Elder Yuhan passed away in his sleep, leaving behind a legacy of wisdom, kindness, and the village he had guided for many years. The news of his death spread quickly, and the villagers gathered together to mourn the loss of their beloved elder. But through their mourning, they all understood one thing: the village must go on. Kai, though deeply saddened, knew what needed to be done. Alara, though grieving for her father, was by his side every step of the way. Together, they would have to find a way to move forward, both as a couple and as leaders of the village. The funeral for Elder Yuhan was a solemn affair. The villagers lined up to pay their respects, each of them remembering the wise elder who had guided them all with care and compassion. Alara stood beside the coffin, her face pale and her eyes swollen from crying, but her posture was strong. She knew her father would want her to be brave. Kai, standing by her side, held her hand tightly, offering her the strength she needed in that moment. After the funeral, the village gathered in the square to discuss the future. The air was heavy with sadness, but there was also a quiet understanding that the time had come to honor Elder Yuhan's wishes and choose the next leader. Kai stood before the villagers, nervous but resolute. He had never imagined he would be in this position, but now, as Alara's husband and the man who had protected the village, he had no choice but to step up. I don't know if I'm the right person to lead, Kai began, his voice shaky but steady, but I promise that I will do my best. Elder Yuhan believed in me, and I will honor his trust. I will lead this village with the same wisdom and kindness he showed. The villagers looked at him with a mix of respect and hope. They had seen Kai's bravery, his strength, and his heart. They knew he was the right choice. Slowly, they began to nod in agreement. And so, it was decided. Kai would take on the mantle of leadership, with Alara by his side as his advisor. Together, they would lead the village, just as Elder Yuhan had done before them. As the new elder, Kai had many responsibilities. He began by organizing the villagers, helping them tend to their crops, repairing damaged homes, and ensuring everyone had enough food for the coming seasons. He knew that it would take time to truly become the leader the village needed, but he was determined to give it his all. Alara, ever his support, helped him every step of the way. Her intelligence, kindness, and deep understanding of the village's needs made her an invaluable partner. Together, they made decisions for the good of the village, working with the farmers, the craftsmen, and the elders to ensure that the village continued to thrive. As time passed, Kai grew into his role. He listened to the villagers, learned from their experiences, and earned their trust. Alara, too, found herself growing into her role as a leader. Their partnership was strong, and they became a beloved couple in the village, not only for their leadership, but for their mutual respect and love for one another. But despite their success, there were still challenges ahead. There were always those who tested their authority, and not everyone in the village was pleased with the new changes. But Kai and Alara faced each obstacle together, determined to honor the legacy of Elder Yuhan and to ensure that the village remained a place of peace, kindness, and prosperity. The years passed, and Kai and Alara led the village with grace, wisdom, and strength. They had children of their own who grew up with the same values of kindness, respect, and community that had been instilled in them. The village flourished, and though there were challenges, they overcame them as a team. The villagers looked to Kai and Alara as their leaders, but they also saw in them the same qualities that Elder Yuhan had embodied: humility, compassion, and a love for the people they served. As the years went by, the memory of Elder Yuhan never faded. His legacy lived on in the decisions Kai and Alara made, in the kindness they showed, and in the love they shared with the villagers. And though Kai was now the elder of the village, he never forgot the lessons Yuhan had taught him. He continued to lead with humility, always remembering that leadership was not about power, but about serving the people who trusted him. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Kai stood on the hill overlooking the river, his hand resting on Alara's. Their children played in the distance, and the sound of laughter filled the air. The village was peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, Kai felt at peace too. "I never thought this would be my life," Kai said softly, his voice filled with gratitude. Alara smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I know, but it's the life we were meant to have." Together, they watched as the sun dipped below the horizon, knowing that they had built something lasting. A village, a family, and a legacy of kindness that would endure for generations to come.